Welcome to the table. You are now listening to the Real Table podcast with Michael Carter.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Table podcast with your host, Michael Carter. And it is great to be back at the table talking more film. We got a big one today. It's doing well at the box office, one of the most anticipated movies of the year. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do, I want to introduce our guest today. We have a two-panel at the guests at the table today. I'm excited to have these two guys here. Josiah and Isaiah both are here at the table. We'll start with Josiah since Josiah hasn't been on the podcast in a while. Josiah, bro, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Excited to talk about this. Earlier I was trying to put together a list of my top 5 best films of 2025 that I've seen so far. But I saw when I looked through my list, I've only seen like 6 of them. So the list was pretty short. Fantastic Four obviously is on that list. So I'm excited to get into it and talk about it.
Nice, bro. Yeah, I feel you. I think that my goal this year was try to watch a lot more movies than I did last year. And we're already at July, and I'm looking at my list, and I'm like, I'm not that far removed from last year. So I was like, I got to pick up the pace. So I feel that. But cool. Isaiah, bro, how you doing?
Hey, what's good? I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Bro, I can't complain. I cannot complain.
All
seen anything lately?
Yes. I've seen a lot since I've last been in this podcast with you. I believe the last one we did. I'm trying to remember the last one we did. I think we were talking about F1. I think
so too.
Towards the end of June, going into oh yeah, with Jurassic World. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen quite a few since then. Of course, like I caught up with the Superman movie and a few other projects. I'm trying to look because I've seen, and this is not me trying to gloat, but I was doing a bit better compared to recent years. Last year, the year before that, I didn't see as many films as I want, and I'm already doing a better job than I was last year. Since I've been gone, other than Superman, I've seen Eddington, Ari Aster film, which is the first Ari Aster film I've ever seen in theaters. I did not see Hereditary in theaters, heck no, and I did not see Midsommar in theaters, but I saw Eddington, and I was greatly surprised of how much of a beautiful mess this movie is. Like it is. I walked out of the film and I'm looking at other people and we're talking. I'm like, this is a beautiful mess because it is the quintessential COVID film. Like we've seen other films depict COVID and go into about COVID, but this is the movie that actually has COVID as a narrative tool within the film. It's not just talked about or something in the background. I think Joaquin Phoenix gives an incredible performance. I really enjoyed a lot of the direction. This isn't a horror film, which I appreciate how Ari Aster deteriorated, like kind of like steering away from horror, but you do feel some of the horror elements as this movie, in a raw, unapologetic way, depicts the incline of just the destruction and paranoia that was felt during that period of 2020 within that 6 to 9 months of just chaos and misinformation and the question of who you could trust. I don't think from a writing perspective it's the sharpest film. There are certainly a lot of bloated subplots involving Austin Butler or even Emma Stone. As great as performances as they give, I mean, she's Emma Stone. For me, one of the greatest actresses of all time. She's going to make it do what it do, whatever type of script she's given, even within something like Amazing Spider-Man 2. But it just didn't work as well as I was hoping, but the highs are pretty high. And it is overall a very thought-provoking piece of art that I will take any day over what I get next that I'm going to talk about is Smurfs 2. I mean, Smurfs. Not a good movie. Yeah, that was...
You saw that, dang.
Yeah, I did. That was rough. Not even my love for Rihanna, not even my love for her could have done it. And you know what? If Rihanna is going to end with that Anti album, you know what? That's a good way to go out. But I need her to do some better movies because this wasn't it. I can't believe I'm saying this. The worst movie of the year, even over Minecraft. Like even Minecraft, I have
Wow.
more admiration than something like this. I think I gave it like a 3 out of 10. I almost gave it a
Hmm.
2, but it wasn't like the worst thing cinema has ever given us. But as far as this year, it was pretty bad. And ending it off last, Fantastic Four, which we're going to be talking about right here, and I can't wait to give my opening thoughts.
Nice, bro. Yeah. You work at a for those that don't know, Isaiah works at a theater, so he's able to
Yes, I
see
work for
them a little.
AMC.
Yeah, he's able to see them just a little bit more than a lot of us other people. But that's good that you're able to keep up.
Bro, you'd be surprised how many people at the theaters who work there don't actually watch a lot of movies.
That's
Are you
crazy,
serious right
man.
now?
I
I
am
mean,
very serious.
that's
That's
nuts.
crazy.
Like
I
Josiah, I
wish.
ain't playing, man. Like one of my, because basically my GM, the head of the building, like even she isn't really seen watching a lot of movies. For the first time, I saw her in just regular civilian clothes, outside of work clothes. Like, oh, you're gonna,
You're
oh,
going
you're
to a
watching
movie.
this, okay. My
I mean,
and
I
then
could kind of understand because, like, when I used to work at Walmart, I think, or Meijer, a coworker, a friend of mine was shocked that like I didn't like that I went shopping in other grocery stores. I'm like, just because I
Mhm.
work here doesn't mean I like swore fealty to the store. But I think movie theaters is a little bit different. You're getting more out of it than groceries. So I'm like, I'm just like dumbfounded that you said that's true.
Yeah, you know what's
Because
up.
I'd be in the theaters all the time if I worked there.
It's a
I have a
second
friend of
home.
mine. His friend of mine, his friend works at a theater, and he's always giving my friend posters for movies and stuff because my friend, like the three of us, really likes film and whatnot. I'm like, I'd be getting posters all the time. I'd be seeing movies all the time. Like, it sounds like a dream job if you ask me.
I miss those days. I miss those days working at the theater, getting those free tickets, posters up for
Man,
grabs, the free popcorn, the 20% off if you go. Man, I miss those days.
I'm gonna
That's
age myself when
yeah.
I say that I have a poster right now in my closet that features movies like Tully, Charlize Theron. I got Little Women. I got 1917. I got 4v Ferrari. That just shows how long I've been like Tully. That was
Dang.
2018. That just shows how long
Yeah.
I've been working with them. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is. I wish I could have got that Annihilation poster, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a pleasure. It is a privilege. Not everybody, like I even have another coworker who she doesn't like to watch movies. She's just there. She's doing her job. She's been with the theaters for years, over a decade, but she's more of a
dang,
book person. And you know what? I can respect that.
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair
I
enough.
respect that. Yeah, for sure. All right, boys. Let's get right to it. Let's get right to it.
Famous around the world, please welcome the Fantastic Four. Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch,
I love you, Johnny!
and The Thing.
Hey, what time is it? Say the thing.
That's not really something I say.
It's clobbering time.
That's just in the cartoon. Never late for Sunday dinner. Let's eat.
Hey, what time is it?
It's dinner time. Get inside.
I herald his beginning. I herald your end. I herald Galactus.
What is that? Get us out of here, Ben! Hold on! Are we safe?
I don't know. The clock is ticking. We are going to find a solution. We are going to make it right.
You don't want to just crush him.
Hide that. The four of us will face the danger. We will protect you.
Family. It's about connecting to something bigger than yourself. We'll face it together.
As a family.
What time is it, Ben?
No.
What time is it, Ben?
No, Johnny.
Say it!
I don't wanna!
Say it!
Marvel Studios, The Fantastic Four, First Steps. This was, like even before it was announced, ever since the merger between 20th Century Fox and Disney, this was easily one of the most highly anticipated titles on Disney's hands, on Disney's radar. Everybody wanted to know, how are they going to do Fantastic Four? How is Fantastic Four going to be introduced? You know, from 05 to 07, we got the first two movies, Fantastic Four, then Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Rise of the Silver Surfer didn't do well at the box office, and then Fox is like, we need to do something different, which was stupid. And then they decided to make the 2015 version of Fantastic Four, which we won't touch on because I refuse, because that movie's so horrible. And there's too many people out there, too, before this movie, The First Steps, came out. People are like, I want to watch this movie just to see it because I haven't seen it. And I was like, you guys are idiots. And then every response I would see is that people are like, yeah, this movie's bad. So do not watch the 2015 version. It's not worth it. Jeff, just don't watch
R.I.P.
it.
Josh Trank, though.
Yes,
Yeah,
R.I.P. Josh Trank.
Chronicle is great, and then
Yep.
R.I.P. him.
Yep,
And then we could just leave it at that.
Yep. Rest in peace, Josh Trank. He's still alive. He's still alive. Just his career.
Oh yes.
He's still alive.
His career. Let's
yeah,
just
his
say
career.
that.
And yeah, people have been waiting to see what Disney does with the characters like the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and many others that have come from that Fox merger. And we finally arrive at this moment. And this moment's kind of perfect because the MCU needed this. And I think the Fantastic Four as a whole, when thinking about film and stuff, it needed it as well. And so I think this was like the perfect storm that the Marvel needed this to get more momentum heading into these next two movies. And then the title characters needed to be revived. As somebody said in an article that I read today, they needed to be risen from the grave of some sorts. And so personally, I'll give my first take before I get you guys get your takes in. I think this was a solid film. I saw it on last Thursday, but then I saw it last night again. But I think Fantastic Four, The First Steps, is super, super solid. The world building, the setting, the story. I think everything about this movie just breathes heart. Right, and it's not your typical superhero movie, which I think we'll get into it. That's been some of the criticism I've seen, is that there's some things that people wanted to see that were missing. But overall, for me, I just think this movie just does what it needs to do, building these characters, making you fall in love with these characters, and doing a good job of it, because it's not an origin film, but it's a first iteration, a first chapter of us witnessing this version of these characters. So I think Matt Shackman did a really good job. Vanessa Kirby, big highlight. We're gonna get into all those things later. Galactus, big highlight for me. And just the whole cast chemistry overall was just a big highlight for me. But yeah, Fantastic Four, The First Steps. Yeah, solid movie. Let's start with you, Isaiah. What you got?
So, of course, we've been talking about the Fantastic Four and that build-up anticipation literally since we were discussing Thunderbolts and post-Captain America, Brave New World. Let's break it down a little bit with my experience with Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, was one of my earliest childhood experiences when it comes to being introduced to the superhero film adaptation. When I think of that, Spider-Man 2, those were the earliest experiences. I remember when that movie was being marketed. I remember that being the same year as Spider-Man 3. If I'm not mistaken, like even Burger King had like the Silver Surfer toys and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's coming back now. It's coming back. Yep.
And with Tim Story, who is a studio for hire like director who I've always admired, um, whether it's his barbershop films or even his Think Like a Man movies, which I know have their audience, his tackle with Fantastic Four. As an adult looking back at it, I have a lot of nostalgia for that film, but I recognize it's not a good movie. But there are aspects about it that I think still do hold up, especially when I look at Ben Grimm's character and Michael Chulkin's depiction as Ben Grimm, or even, of course, the great Chris Evans as Johnny Storm before his Captain America days. Then we go to Fan Four Stick in 2015. You're not going to talk about it. I will. This is a tragedy of a film because when you take into account of who this director is and how incredible of a debut he just came out of the gate with Chronicle. I'm not a big fan of the found footage sub like genre. I'm kind of glad we're past that era. I mean, yeah, every now and then there was something that did catch my eye. Like I did appreciate Cloverfield, and Chronicle was another found footage film that even more than the Blair Witch Project, like I was like, this is getting me hooked. I like this. It's more of a realistic depiction of people getting their superpowers and just the responsibility of that weight that it has that can either be a success or a tragedy. And I can imagine Chronicles is what got him that job. And there was a lot that was going on behind the scenes behind Fan Four Stick that it's not his fault, not completely. There was a lot of studio interference, a lot of crap that just went on down, and it's a tragedy. And it made you question, can we ever get a good Fantastic Four film? And after Avengers Endgame, I said to myself, if anybody can do it, it's Kevin Feige. Where he's somebody that Kevin Feige is managing over with producing. And of course, we get the announcement of the cast, Fantastic Four. We get the announcement during the pandemic that they're doing a Fantastic Four film. There's been much debate of who's going to play him. Is it going to be John Krasinski, who eventually played a variant of him in Multiverse of Madness? And then we get a new one with Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Evan Moss Bacharach, and I'm butchering his name. I keep trying to pronounce his name correctly. I'm a fan of the bear. I should know it by now, but even then, it's one of those names that still kind of get me. I was excited for this movie. Granted, it wasn't my most anticipated Marvel movie this year, but I was excited with the aesthetic, with the people behind the scenes. Mark Chapman, of course, beautiful work, great Emmy-worthy direction with his work in WandaVision, television to film or to digital work adaptation on the big screen. And I can say with confidence, this is a good movie. And it's probably the first Fantastic Four film that I can say with confidence is just straight up good. I appreciate so much about the aesthetic and the visual style and the world building. I love the fact that this film does not take place in the MCU in terms of that timeline of Earth 616 that we get within the Tony Stark timeline and the Endgame timeline. I love that this film takes place in a different world. I love the futuristic 60s retro art direction and production design that is some of the best I've seen of this decade so far, and maybe my favorite work in Marvel since Black Panther from the great Hannah Beachler, who won Best Art Direction at the Academy Awards. I very much heavily enjoyed the overall storyline of this film, where you have this family of intelligent beings being challenged by this threat of Galactus and put into a lot of morally questionable scenarios of what is the best choice and the burden of intelligence and of moral responsibility that one has. I'm going into this film And it's been years, maybe not since Infinity War, where I actually question, are these heroes going to lose? I'm going into this film thinking these guys are cooked. What are you going to do? Like, no, seriously, what are they going to do against this threat that I believe?
Yeah.
However, this movie is, for me, borderline good. I'm not saying it's a disappointing film, but there are aspects about it that didn't work as well as I think it should have. I mentioned how this is a good storyline, but it is kind of hijacked by some pretty inconsistent editing that I wasn't a fan of. It's not awful work, but I didn't really enjoy it that much from a consistency perspective. I also think that some of the casting and the way how the performances are directed, I mean, you can say whatever you want about casting and, oh, Pedro Pascal, we're tired of him, or is Joseph Quinn really a good Johnny Storm? None of this is going to matter if your direction feels safe. Some of the notes that Pedro Pascal got that he wanted to do for this character was turned down. And it's kind of like they played this movie very safe in the banter, in the performances, and in the way how these characters would interact. It's serviceable work. The performances, other than Vanessa Kirby, maybe Julia Garner, I would say are serviceable. They're not bad, but it's not doing anything to elevate the material more. Of all of the team up films we've seen in the MCU, whether it's Avengers, Guardians, Thunderbolts, this is probably my least favorite use of banter, my least favorite use of comedic relief, and my least favorite use of actual camaraderie. But I do still feel like these guys are a family that is anchored by a very impressive performance by Vanessa Kirby. And to wrap up my opening thoughts, I think this is a very good film that is probably the first good Fantastic Four movie. But I think if I'm judging it by Marvel standards, there's something that was holding this film back, and I couldn't deny it.
Okay. All right, Joe, what you got? What you got?
So, but my wife doesn't know. I've showed her all the MCU films and all that. And we saw Thunderbolts together, and she's not that familiar with the Fantastic Four. So a couple, like the week of rewatched, or I rewatched, and she saw it for the first time, Rise of the Silver Surfer. And like you were saying, Isaiah, like I do have nostalgia for that film. I remember seeing it in theaters a couple weeks after Spider-Man 3. One thing I remember from that was some guy at the front of the theater did a backflip before the movie started. And somebody in the audience shouted, they're like, hey, man, Spider-Man was 2 weeks ago, you know? So just that time of, like you were saying, superhero films and all of that. And I was never the biggest Fantastic Four fan. Like through video games and stuff, I knew who they were. I didn't know much about them. But I noticed that this new film, the storyline did kind of follow some of the same beats as the Rise of the Silver Surfer film. That's not necessarily bad. I mean, when adapting a comic book, things are going to overlap and stuff, like no matter what you do. But and I will say that, I don't have anything against them, but Pedro Pascal was not my first choice to play Mr. Fantastic, but I think they did a great job. I agree with Isaiah that I feel like after rewatching Rise of the Silver Surfer, I feel like the camaraderie and banter and the family dynamic worked a lot better in those films than in this one. Um, but I think that, and I'm not sure how I feel about which was better for me, a CGI thing or the practical effects they did with Michael Chiklis in the other films, because I thought they did a great job. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that Isaiah said that I would repeat, like the futuristic Jetsons 65s, even the filtering that they used in the cinematography was different than anything we've seen in the MCU. I liked how they rectified the Galactus mistake. They're like, we're not doing that anymore. And I think Julia Garner did a great job as Silver Surfer. I think it's funny, and I'm not going to get into this. It's just I think it's definitely not this, but I was like, oh, it could be like kind of a difference between men and women, because in Rise of the Silver Surfer, he was just flying around doing his thing, didn't really interact with people very much, didn't really say anything. But in the first step, she's like, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, your planet's marked for death, and that's it.
Yeah.
Hug your loved ones. And she actually had some sort of compassion, like, yeah, it sucks, but spend the last few moments where he's just like, nope, I'm not. I'm just here doing my thing, and you guys can do whatever. But yeah, I think they did a great job with like this new trend we've been seeing with a lack of um, origin stories. The origin storyline, and it was Superman. Obviously, everybody knows it. They glossed over it. Spider-Man and Civil War, Homecoming, they glossed right over it. And there's a way you could do it like they did in this movie without doing it. Just I love the documentary kind of style of like, hey. And one thing my wife said in Rise of the Silver Surfer, she didn't like it. It kind of came off a little MTV for her, like or TMZ, my bad, where they're like celebrities in the celebrity culture. And I was saying a lot of that had to do with the fact that they're the only heroes in that world in the Fox universe.
Yeah.
But with this film, they are also the only heroes in the world. But the way they did the celebrity aspect of their characters, I thought worked very well. And it did add to the stakes of, hey, the Fantastic Four, ever since they showed up, they've always solved every problem. They've saved us, and now there's a threat. And Reed's like, yeah, I don't know what to do. And everybody's like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? And that moral dilemma. So yeah, I mean, because if I'm being honest, and Michael, we talked about this, I have definitely kind of fallen off the Marvel train, especially post Endgame. I mean, we had Shang-Chi, great. No Way Home, great. Um, Thunderbolts was pretty good, kind of getting back on track. But outside of that, I haven't really kept up with the Disney Plus shows either. And so it's like Fantastic Four, let's see how that does. And, now Marvel's 2 for 2 again. And, they're slowing things down. They're being a lot more intentional. And I think it really shows. Last thing I'll say, I think one thing that did kind of damper the impact of the movie was just when it came out, because Fantastic Four has always been known as Marvel's first family. But like Isaiah was saying, okay, we've had Guardians, we've had several Avengers films at this point. So we Thunderbolts, so we've done the kind of family dynamic or misfit family dynamic so many times in the MCU where it's like now they actually are a family, but it's like it didn't really set the standard as much as it could have if it came out like in the past. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, I'm ready to get into the deeper details of this film. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it as well.
Nice. Yeah. My wife also enjoyed it too. She was there last night watching again too, and she really enjoyed it, and she also fell off the Marvel train with just oversaturation with the movies, not the movies, but more so just the shows and just content and being able to keep up. So, but I think she's, pretty interested in possibly what happens next. So, we'll definitely touch on that. But let's get this started. So, like, I think it was really cool. Like, again, like you talked about it, Josiah, like how the movie, we don't get much, or we don't like the movie doesn't start off as an origin story, right? We don't get the origin stuff. We just get the little snippets. And I thought, personally, I thought it was a creative way to introduce the characters instead of, taking us back to like one moment. We get a montage of different moments in a style of a talk show that's in their universe. And I thought that was really cool to get us a glimpse of different moments from when they started up until this very moment, which, funny enough, is 4 years from when they first started being superheroes. Any initial reactions to seeing that opening? I know before it got into that, it went through the whole pregnancy thing, which was kind of cool too. But any thoughts on like that opening montage as an intro and opening?
To Josiah's point, I think he made an interesting observation when it comes to the cinematography of this film. Now, yes, I get it. Not everybody's a fan of that digital glossy Marvel sheen like look. I'm not either. And there are times where this movie does fall into that pattern, but
Yeah.
the first 10 minutes of this movie, holy God, it is amazing. I love the stock aesthetic of film grain. I love that nostalgic feeling that you get with the press when they're carrying around these cameras that aren't like digital and these older, like more vintage, like photos and photographies and vintage of archives.
Yeah.
And yes, similar to Superman, we don't need an origin story. We don't need to see this. We know what happens. This movie trusts its audience in order to portray it, and it does it in a smart way that totally goes against the introduction that you would normally see within the MCU of characters being introduced for the first time. Everybody does feel like they have their own type of character trait. Reed, I really enjoyed what they did with his character and that introduction of a man of brilliance that
Hmm.
you do feel like later on is burdened with intelligence and the idea of the positivities of that, but the negativities. And we can say what we want about Pedro Pascal. I do agree with the idea that I don't think he's born to play Reed Richards like how, say, Florence Pugh was born to play Yelena, or how Chadwick Boseman was born to play T'Challa. Like, no, I wouldn't go that far. But what I admire that they did here and that in Pedro's performance, I truly do feel like that Reed Richards is the smartest man on earth. I didn't feel that with Fan Four Stick, and say this with all due respect to the portrayal in the Fantastic Four back in 2005. I didn't feel that there either. I like the energy that we've gotten in that 2005 depiction, but where he may lack in energy, he makes up with that. You really do feel like this guy is one of the smartest, if not the smartest man on earth. And when you take into other accounts of the other crew, Johnny, we see him. He's not just like that very like jock type of
Yeah.
character who thinks he's the coolest one and kind of has a sense of arrogance. Like, no, even Johnny he justifies being on this team. I didn't really understand why Johnny was on the team to go to space in the other films. I'm like, no, he shows his own intelligence too, even as
Yeah.
we see later on in the film when it comes to linguistics. Same thing with Ben Grimm, same thing when it comes to Sue Storm. They all do a great job at justifying why are they a team? Why are they a family unit? And why are these the people that we celebrate and hold to such a high standard at being the protectors of this world? Through
Yeah.
their cool use of superpowers. I really enjoyed the visual effects of how they were very creative with their superpowers, along with showcasing more of saving the day than kicking ass and taking names. We've
Yep.
seen a lot of Marvel show more characters of just how good can I just beat the crap out of this person rather
Mhm.
than, oh golly, ma'am, I'll come save you. I actually enjoyed that.
Joe, what you got?
Yeah, I think a little bit what he's touching on, I'll go in this direction that it gives us like with giving that like TV announcer kind of montage vibe, it really sets the tone of who the Fantastic Four are. Like we see like it does a great job at distinguishing them from the Avengers or like any other superhero team of like they're 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 polished, they're neat, they're organized, they get the job done, they save the day. There's like not a whole lot of collateral damage, and going back to my earlier point of like I guess you could say the hero worship and the celebrity aspect is they're not um like they're family. They're humble, they're not cocky, they're not like they're not Tony Stark who's like, hey, look at me, I'm Iron Man, I'm like, you know, like what was it, Iron Man 2 where he says like because I haven't found anybody man enough to go toe to toe with me on my best day and like look, they're just a family and they go around and save people, and it's like, you know, they do a good job. They're neat, they're organized, tight knit, and so it's like the world's perception of them is good. You know, they're like a model family as opposed to the Avengers, who you would probably see J. Jonah Jameson scrutinize like every other day. Like they're blowing stuff up. They're just going around causing problems. It's like that's not who the Fantastic Four is, you know, and how they there is a bunch of scientific brilliance. I did notice that where even my wife picked up on that, how like in the other ones she kind of didn't understand why Johnny was there because he just, you know, but in this one it's like he actually is pretty competent, and I loved the just the vibe of, you know, I love the recreation of some famous covers from the Fantastic Four comics in the past. Um, and I just thought it was really nice, you know. And then, you know, they're inviting people into the Baxter Building. They're approachable. They just seem like regular human beings as opposed to larger than life. And I thought that that really made them a lot more personal and relatable in that aspect. In that they really were able to show that in those first 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And I thought that that really um, it really set the tone for the rest of the film.
It's funny you say that, Josiah, because that's you said everything that I really agreed with until that last part, and I was hoping, if it's okay with Michael, if we would be okay with talking about this, where I think it does set the tone visually,
Okay.
but I couldn't help but notice that from a editorial perspective, and this is one of the I wouldn't say rare, but one of the examples of, you see so many examples of, you can make we've seen great movies that aren't that well written. Well, this was a movie that I couldn't help but feel with the shooting draft. This is a very well written movie that doesn't feel like a lot of the editorial work and time gives it space for us to marinate within these characters. A lot of these characters, we get so much from the first 10 minutes and it's beautiful. But as we get past those first 10 minutes, I can't feel we're kind of like rushing to get to the actual meat and potatoes plot of the film rather than marinating with these characters and who they are. I say someone like an example for Ben Grimm. Yes, we know that Ben, we know his past, we know his trauma. I appreciate that this movie doesn't depict him as this tortured soul wrestling to accept this new version of himself. We know that he's moved on. I like the fact that he's not a hothead and he's more of a homebody. He cooks and he even is admired by the kids. He's not like, the kids aren't afraid of him like how they were in the first film. But there are scenes where I'm like, we kind of don't get enough of that. Even with this character that is introduced, played by I'm blanking on her name. Why am I blanking on her name? I apologize, Natasha Lyonne. And there's something going on there that just feels underdeveloped between that relationship. Like, what is it about Ben? Like, how is he, even though he's already accepted this version of him? And same thing with Johnny as well. Like, other than the fact that he forms a connection with Silver Surfer, but it's made for laughs and jokes about, okay, is this intimacy, or did you actually like find an actual connection? It kind of just speeds through the process, even though it's introducing very interesting, thought-provoking complexities within these characters that makes them compelling.
That's interesting. I feel like I've been reading, obviously, and some of the criticism. I did kind of feel it last night. Like, I was like, oh, we're at this point in the movie. All we have is this and this, and then the movie's over. So I can get that where people are like, it moves fast. I can see that criticism. Some of the tweets I've been reading are people are like, there are certain moments and there are certain scenes that are in the trailer that didn't make it in the movie, and that's not out of the ordinary. That's nothing new. But some people have been like wondering. They're like, did they cut this up and make it, you know, because it's not as long as some of these other Marvel movies, which is fine. Like, it doesn't need to be a certain length, but it does make me wonder because I think Ben is like, if I did have some criticism, I would want it more Ben Grimm for sure, just to see another side of him. But with the length and with the time that the movie, what they give with this movie, it doesn't work unless you extend that time. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
I mean, I guess I agree with that a little bit. Like the whole, I would like to have explored the world they live in a little bit more,
Yeah,
because
sure.
they did just kind of one quick shot show, what was it, Mole Man, and then later in the film, she was like, "Hey, let's go talk to Mole." He's like, "Oh, I do trust too," and it's like, "Hey, we need a favor," and he's like, "All right," and I'm like, you kind of don't really know anything about this guy except he's just the Mole Man.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole subterranean city, which I would like to have learned a little bit more about, like what's the relationship like with Fantastic Four and Mole Man. But instead, it's just like, all right, we go talk to him, and then so I think that is a valid criticism a little bit, and then we just didn't get. I think it's hard though. It's hard because
It's tough. Yeah.
if you think about other MCU films, even in the first ones, the origin, we do actually get time to see who they are. Like Shang-Chi, the Guardians of the Galaxy, like there was enough time in room to get to know who these characters are and a little bit about their world and their story, what they care about. Or Fantastic Four, it's like, hey, we're the Fantastic Four. And then it does kind of jump like right into kind of this story. So I do agree with that a little bit. Like I'll give you that much. Yeah, I see what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Luckily, Paul Walter
Because then it just pivots to like Franklin, and which is fine, and then I think Michael, you and I talked about this in text, that we had a couple of theories about like Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, and whether or not he's like from a parallel world, or if he's in this world, because they did do that one shot of like the world, like United Nations or whatever, and Latvia, that seat was empty. So I'm like, okay, there seems to be a Doctor Doom in this world,
right?
But like, do they have that? Like, what is the relationship like between the two of them? Is it just some guy who randomly popped up and was like, you know what, I kind of don't like the Fantastic Four, or is it going to be like the typical storyline where he has some sort of grievance against Reed and the rest of the crew, and he was like, hey, you guys have a super baby, well, guess what, I'm going to kidnap him, or we don't know what's going to happen in Doomsday, but it just kind of, I guess I would like to have seen a little bit more about the world that they live in.
Yeah. I do think, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I do think them showing, yes, you want to do a fun little Easter egg, like cool, but like, it feels intentional, man. It feels intentional that they specifically showed that country exists, not just exists in that Earth, but that country was at that summit meeting, and that chair was specifically empty.
Yes.
Right. Now it might not. Again, it could be. We could get to next December, and it meant nothing, and Doom is from another place. But I'm like, man, that's an interesting shot to show. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just interesting.
No, that's a good point. That's certainly a good point. And to kind of reel us back into the conversation that we were about the whole concept of not enough being depicted, I don't have a problem with our narratives that are less than 2 hours. But for me, it has to justify the story. The story needs to justify it. Here, I don't necessarily think the story justifies that runtime because of how much you're trying to introduce. And luckily, Paul Walter Hauser, talented actor, does such a good job with Mole Man, where him and Kirby are really elevating more than what is given to them directorially or even from a final execution perspective, where it is a passable enough, like, okay, we understand that they're forming an alliance even though they disagree with things and how they should operate on their own terms as these enhanced beings or people with special abilities. So I can let that slide. But we do get into a place where I can at least have respect that the stakes are established right away, like
Mm-hmm.
right freaking away. It doesn't waste time
Mhm.
on that, and we get this beautiful introduction with Julia Gardner as Silver Surfer, who I think not only is it a very good performance, I really love the sound mixing on her voice and just that echoey, like sci-fi type of feeling that you would get in a late 60s, early 70s type, well, really 60s, 70s type of era of sci-fi filmmaking, of someone allowing the echo
Mm.
chambers of their voice to be more like, have this aura of command. It's demanding attention. It's putting herself into a position of demand where I actually feel the gravitas of her being not just a powerful character on her own, but a messenger. Even the CGI,
Yeah.
yes, I'll be the first to admit it, not as seamless as, say, what we get with Lawrence Fishburne's performance in Silver Surfer, but even if I'm just judging it by today's standards, especially by a lot of the digital slop that we got from Marvel lately, it is a pretty good achievement of
Yeah.
another iteration of a pre-existing character that we've seen before, and it holds its own.
You know, I will actually, to what you said earlier, push back a little bit on the
Ooh,
runtime.
okay.
I think it's fine as it is. You know, movies can only be so long because in the past, especially with Marvel, we've seen movies with like longer runtimes than Fantastic Four with stuff that they could have cut out. A
Sure.
specific example, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they had that, 5-minute scene of Yondu and Rocket in the prison trying to get Groot to get him his fin, and he's bringing back,
Good point.
the
Good point.
toe and then all this. It's like, we didn't need that. Towards the end, when they're trying to plant the bomb, and because Guardians 2 is my least favorite of the Guardians films, and I was able to
Agreed.
overlook a lot of this stuff and my second viewing, but then towards the end, the whole don't push this button, and does anybody have tape? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Did you ask Nebula? Hey, do you have? So I'm like, all right, they could have cut that out, and it would have been
Yeah.
fine. So there are times in the MCU specifically where they've had movies with longer runtimes, but there were plenty of stuff that they could have just cut out, that keeping it in did hurt the film.
Yep.
So I will push back on that point. But everything else I agree with. I still think there's things that they did with the Silver Surfer that I liked better in this, but I gotta
Yep.
say, in the 2007 film, that Silver Surfer Human Torch chase still is like peak top notch right
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
I agree.
I do like the part where he like leans forward and like looks through the board through the bottom and like is going through stuff. But in this one, I did like, spoiler alert. Did we already say spoiler alert about this whole podcast? Or are we
It's fine.
okay? Where she
They
like
knew what they were getting into.
Yeah. They know.
that typical thing, or that like almost that Captain America move where she kicks the board and flies and like hits somebody and then comes back. I
Woo!
was like, I thought that was super smooth.
Yes.
I liked her speed, and I didn't. Again, not knowing a whole lot about from the comics, one thing I didn't like about the 2007 film is how they really use like those little devices to separate him from the board. I'm like, I think the power cosmic from Galactus is a little bit too powerful for that.
Sure.
And so with this one, I liked how, even though they're like, oh, we'll lose her in the black hole, and then they think they
Yep.
got away, and then she's still there, and she gets through the black hole, and she's fine. I was like, all right, I like that. I think the whole dynamic, like showing Galactus and his power, I thought worked well. Like where she kind of like says something smart to him, and he like uses almost the force on her. She's like stuck.
Yep.
Because I didn't like how at the end of the 2007 one, how he like charges up his power and like kills Galactus. I was like, I don't think so. Like if I gave you some of my power, not all of it, I don't think then you would be then able to turn that power on me and to like destroy me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I did like the stakes. I did like the moral dilemma aspect, like you said, of like the baby, and it's like, what, like he wants our baby, and it's like, but this is our kid, we've been trying, and all of that. So yeah, I think the runtime is fine. I think for the first Fantastic Four film they're doing, it works, because there's been like plenty of Marvel films where like the story is pretty basic, and
Yeah.
like the first Thor movie takes place in like what, a weekend. I'm like, all right, you know, he
Sure.
loses his power for like a day or two, and then has to learn how to be humble, and then he gets his power back. So I think this story in this was a lot better than maybe some of the earlier MCU films.
Yeah.
But I don't. I think the runtime is fine, and I think they did good. They made good use of what the runtime that they did have, instead of it kind of like a couple years ago, Mike, when we were talking about the creator and how Gareth Edwards had such a small budget, but the CGI and stuff looked better than
So
some of the
good.
stuff Marvel was doing, because he took what he had and he used it, like he utilized it, and effectively.
Yep.
Whereas this, they had the runtime, they did what they needed to. They cut out a lot of the extra fluff and filler that they could have had, and they just focused on the story that they wanted to tell and the characters, and focused on what they needed to.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. And I do think that is like the funny tension with having this discussion. Is like, man, it's like I wouldn't have mind an extra 20, 15 minutes. But then again, I'm like, but then it's that that extra 20 and 15 minutes. Like, will it actually be good? Will it be worth it for the story, for the good of what they're trying to tell? So that's like that's always an interesting, and I don't think, and that's funny enough, I don't think anybody is like wrong. So like when Isaiah's like, he's like, I think it could be longer and all this other stuff, and I'm like, well, you know, you're not wrong, because like personally for me, I could do another 10 to 15 minutes, and I could see more character depth, for like again Ben Grimm, for example, and even like we got some stuff from Johnny. I wanted more from Johnny. I feel like after a second viewing, I understand the character better, what they were trying to do. I think I was caught off guard, and that's mostly probably because the night before I saw it, I watched the original, the 05 version. And so in my mind, I have this idea of the Human Torch and this idea of Johnny. And then when I watch it, it's not him. And it's not wrong, right? But it's like, it's completely different. And I'm like, well, I feel like I could have used more of that character as well. So it's always interesting when you're talking about runtime, you're talking about, you know, what you could use more of, what you could use less of. But I feel like it's good that, you know, I think we can all agree like this film is good, and the fact that it doesn't suffer from stuff that most of these MCU movies suffer from, it's like, okay, it's a win. So in a sense, I do think maybe it is a little safe, on the safer side. But I think it could pay dividends in the long run. Because I hope eventually they'll do a sequel, and they'll do it a lot quicker and not wait. But they'll do a sequel, and hopefully we can get a lot of the stuff that I think people wanted in this movie. But yeah, that's always an interesting topic. And I think this is the first time discussing this where I'm like, oh, this feels kind of good, because like, I mean, I feel like nobody is technically wrong in this kind of discussion.
This might be a bit of a hot take, but you were talking about being good. We were discussing the negotiation scene and the introduction to Galactus. I thought that was very good. And
that was very good.
Escaping
very good
from Galactus with Silver Surfer. Oh my God. Her surfing the freaking fire lava from that was cooking. That was pretty good. But
so good.
I have to admit, I really wasn't that big of a fan of the action in this film. But
fair.
What made the action elevated was I felt the stakes. I truly did. I felt the moral, just nightmarish position that no parent and no family would ever want when it comes to, do we choose our world or do we choose this baby and fight a uphill battle? I love the Interstellar. Like, I've heard that Mark Shackman is a pretty big admirer of Interstellar. There's a lot of cues and a lot of visual motifs here, whether it's connecting the ship to a like satellite, like exoskeleton ship to help them teleport, that I thought was good. It reminded me of the Detached scene, or that you would get in something like a Gravity or Interstellar, and even their escape into that beautiful looking black hole. Another great CGI achievement. The action itself, I don't think was the best in terms of its like flow of editorial work. Like I'm even dissecting some of the way how we get to this point and the blocking. And like I said, sometimes I think the cast ensemble, really the direction is lacking an energy that you would get in, again, say what you want about that first Fantastic Four film, but you felt the energy there with that peril. And
Sure.
I get that these characters, they're supposed to remain calm in a environment because they are professionals. They're in space. You have to remain emotionally like stable in order to get through this. But I did feel that lack of urgency, but where it made up for it, where I will say it worked overall, they did a great job at establishing Silver Surfer with, okay, she's kind of like this. I'm a sucker for Terminator like figures where you think when you made this really good attack or really good solid blow, they're down, like, hey, we escaped. And they just come out of nowhere, like, hey, I'm here. Like that type of
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Yeah.
There's a certain shot where she comes and she teleports into the no, she phases, I apologize, not teleport, she phases into their ship and stretches her hand towards Sue as Sue is ready to give birth, and we see that beautiful like use of invisible powers where we see the ultrasound of the baby.
Oh,
And knowing how that was a very great setup to what we got in that shot, that is what made up for the action, in my opinion, is we established the sense of danger that these characters are actually in. Versus something like a Captain America Brave New World, no disrespect, I enjoyed the action of that film. There was a lot of good action set pieces and
yeah.
concepts that I really enjoyed,
Mm-hmm.
Valid.
but many
Valid.
times I didn't feel the stakes. Here, I actually did, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that from Mark Shackman.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because with the not just like the family element, the stakes, but also the oh, we can't actually use our powers to fight this. Because in the 2007, they're like, how do we kill a giant space god? And it's like, okay, the world's coming to an end apparently. But same with like Infinity War. Like, all right, when Thanos first shows up, you're like, oh crap! Like he just dismantles Thor and the Hulk, and he's like, this guy's bad news. And so the
Mhm.
whole, all right, Ben, Johnny, like, all right, if something happens, you can punch him. All right, fine. Like we're here to talk, but all right, you guys want to punch something, so go ahead. And then they go in there and they see this just huge guy sitting in a chair, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to punch him. And like, it's
Johnny's
just like that
fine.
that realization of like, oh, what we thought was going to happen isn't actually going to happen because what are you going to do? Stub his toe? You know what I mean? Like he's just, and then not only is the silver, like they know how powerful the Silver Surfer is, because like you said, she phases into the ship, and then just like in the 2007 one where he appears and she puts up her force field and he just like peeks his head through, and then she puts her force field down because she's like, okay,
Oh, that was
apparently this,
wicked.
so it's that level of stakes as well. Like he's huge. They're like they come back home and like they have no answers, and they're like, hey, how'd you defeat Galactus? He's like, we haven't. They're like, what? He's like, yeah, not yet. And then you're like, what do you mean? And then they didn't, and you saying they had to stay calm and composed because they didn't just say like, you guys had no idea what we just witnessed with our own eyes. All right, like, don't judge us. Why don't you go talk to him? But
The
just
best
that
thing
his his
showcased.
his his power. You know what I mean? Just like he's huge. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, with that scene where he comes onto Earth and then he like jumps in the water and it's like, psh, you know what I mean? And just ripping out trees and just looking. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you gonna do against something like that? You know what I mean? So it's like, clearly we're not going to be able to use our powers and fight and to protect. So we gotta try to figure out something to do.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy the actual stakes in that sense.
That press conference, and I think it's very famous and popular to just dogpile on Pedro Pascal and how much opportunities he's been given.
Yeah.
But even if you think this guy is miscast in this role, he is still a talented actor because that press
Mm-hmm.
conference scene
Ooh, it's good.
was some
It's
genuinely
good.
good acting. Like I
Yep.
felt the fear of just imagine the world's smartest man who is so used to outthinking and using his brain and using his intelligence to get him out of pretty much any situation he can, even to the point where he relies on his science and intellect more than his actual stretching abilities. I like how we didn't get that much like stretching power like showcases here, but we got more of his intellect. But for the first time, we saw on Reed's face, I got nothing. Like, my intelligence is not going to get us out of here. And that line delivery of, after are we safe? I don't know. I felt it. I felt that defeat, only for the movie to give what is a hysterical idea of a SpongeBob reference. We should take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere
Yeah.
else. That was the plan. I was like, you know what? I like that. That's actually pretty interesting. That idea of we can't defeat you, so we're just going to go move and push somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like the idea of like knowing that, and again, like with the way that it's dissimilar to Thanos, and I know it's like comic book based anyway, but like how Galactus isn't evil. He's just like, yo, guys, I have this insatiable hunger, and it freaking sucks. Like, you don't know what it's like to just be hungry all the time. So it's like, what do you expect me to do? Like, I got to eat something, you know? And then he's like, says, like, baby, all right, this thing right here, he can satisfy my hunger permanently, or maybe switch places with me, like become my successor. So, of course, like, I would want to do that. You know, it's like, I'm just hungry. Like, you know, you guys understand that, and I'm not cruel. It's just, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And, you know, I forgot what I was going to say next, but just the, you know, like what you were saying, just like the way that okay, here's what I was going to say. And then at the end, it's like you said, we're just going to move. And it's like, okay, that doesn't work. So we're just going to move him. And it's like the fact that they know it's not going to kill him. You know, he's still going to be out there, but it's just going to take him like forever to get back. So it's like knowing that it's not one of those typical Marvel, you know, things where the villain dies at the end. It's like, no, Galactus, he's too powerful to just kill. So it's like, we're just, you know, he's just going to be gone, and he's going to be out in space. He'll still be there. But, you know, we're not killing him. This is the best that we could do, is just push him away, you know, just tell him to go away, and not some like super kooky way of like figuring out how to kill him or sapping his energy or something, you know. So I did like that aspect of knowing like he is a real threat. He's not a threat that you beat. The best you could do is just avoid him, or try to figure out some other way to get him to leave the earth alone. Because if you can't, then there's nothing you can do, you know?
Delay the inevitable. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much delay the inevitable, because it's like he's hungry, he's going to come, and if he wants to kill the earth, then he can. I like when they go down to the one planet and then it just like explodes in front of their faces. They're like, oh crap, like it's like, how could he eat planets? And they're like, oh, that's how he can eat planets. Like it just exploded right in front of us, you know?
Oh my God, the line reading where I forgot who said it specifically. I think it was either Ben or Reed, where he talked about how this planet is bigger than the Earth, and I was like, yeah, I don't. Y'all might be, you might be done. You might be done. I didn't know how to interpret it any type of way, and yes, like this is a damned character who has like this eternal like enslavement to hunger that I thought was very interesting. I can't help but feel like Galactus was a bit more on the generic side, but he certainly isn't one of the worst MCU villains. Like, I wouldn't go that far. I'll take him any day out of the week over what we got in Brave New World, or or even not Quantumania, my God, or even some other pictures that we've gotten from the past. Like I think he is a very Mike. You said it earlier. Safe villain, checks off the boxes, good, solid voice acting performance, and it gets the job done.
And visually too. It was I loved watching, like last Thursday, seeing him for the first time. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He looked incredible. No, unfortunately. Not even last night. I didn't even get it. I couldn't see it in IMAX last night either. But
The IMAX photo is insane, bro. When he
I
rides to New
seen
York,
it. The
good
photo.
God.
I seen the photo. I said, man. I was like, I gotta catch it at least once in IMAX. Once.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I am
man.
gonna have to hop on here pretty soon, but there are a couple things I wanted to say first. I'm very interested to see what the Fantastic Four's first impressions are of the main MCU timeline. Because No Way Home, some of the, like Electro and all that, they were impressed by some of the technology that exists, like with Tony Stark and the Iron Man suit and all that. But the technology advancement that they had in the Fantastic Four world was just like unreal, And so it's like, how would they feel coming to the main MCU timeline and just be like, where's all your flying cars?
Yeah.
Where's your, your interdimensional? And they're like, yeah, we don't have any of that. And they're like, what do you mean you don't have any of that? Like going to almost like Into the Spider-Verse, where he sees, or the Peter Parker sees like a younger, more successful version of him, and how it makes him feel. We go into a world that like isn't as polished or like impressive as the one that you're used to.
Sure.
And just kind of that whole dynamic of having to adjust to a different world where there's a lot more superheroes, but it's a lot less like polished and neat and clean, and how that's all gonna go into effect. And I don't want to be like, it's just one of those things where you just don't think about it and it won't matter. But it's the same issue with No Way Home that I feel like it's gonna be with this one. It's like, all right, in Into the Spider-Verse, they explained that if you go to a different reality, you can only stay there for a certain amount of time, or else you'll glitch and you'll like phase out.
Sure.
But Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were in the main MCU line, and nothing crazy happened to them. Obviously, we don't know how long they were there, but it's like,
Sure.
at the end of Thunderbolts, we see the Fantastic Four coming to, the main line. It's like, so what's going to happen to them? Like, they don't belong there, so are they going to like? And obviously, they're not going to do that. But it's kind of like, it kind of doesn't really. It's just like one of those things where it's like, the inconsistencies between worlds and rules. And it's like, wouldn't that apply to like everyone? But I know they're not going to address that at all, or whatnot.
They might a little bit, because the whole basis of Secret Wars is that everything is kind of falling to, excuse my language, to shit.
Yeah.
And
much.
so everything eventually is gonna fall under one world.
Yeah.
So they might be able to tackle, I'm gonna say tackle it wholeheartedly, but they might be able to touch on it just a little bit. Speaking of that, before you get out of here, I gotta know your thoughts. We've all seen Thunderbolts.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all thought, and I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, we all thought Galactus was gonna eat up their planet and they were gonna flee.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, I thought they were. I didn't think they were going to win. I legitimately didn't think they were going to win.
Because I thought that would have been a great story of like these heroes that are used to winning, used to being on top, failing the entire world in one fell swoop, and then having to go to another world and say like, yeah, guys, we failed. We never failed like that before. We're here to warn you. I thought that would have been great, but they didn't do that. So
now the fact that they didn't do that, and we actually we don't know why their ship is fleeing and why they're coming into the. What do you think now? Now we saw that post-credit scene. We see that Doom pops up, and we see Doom pops up in front of Franklin, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do we think is happening? Like, do we
he's
think
kidnapping Franklin, using him as like a battery or something to teleport between worlds? Sort of like, I guess you could say, what Wanda wanted to do with America Chavez in Multiverse of Madness. It's like, hey, she's got powers. She can teleport to different realities. I'm going to use her power. So he's like, because I think I read an article somewhere, I think Kevin Feige or somebody said that Tony Stark's death has something to do, like Doctor Doom, it has something to do with Doctor Doom, and like why he wants to do what he wants to do. Maybe he feels like upset that an alternate version of him like died like that. It's like, hey, I'm going to do what he did, but better, like on a grander scale, like putting a suit of armor around the world, because Doctor Doom has Doom bots and all of that stuff.
Right.
But he's going to kidnap their son, and maybe at the last minute they're going to jump to the wormhole before it closes, or perhaps Reed comes up with some interdimensional device to track them, and they somehow go to the main MCU timeline where Tony Stark is dead. And he's like, I'm going to be the new Tony Stark in this planet, and I'm using Franklin to get there, and they just have to follow him. It's like, hey, yo, guys, we're the Fantastic Four. We're from another reality. He stole our kid. We're just here to get him. He's a dangerous guy, you know. And then that's that. Like, you know, kind of like a, I can't think of an example, but it's like almost like in the first Avengers where Thor's like, yo, dude, this isn't a Asgardian problem. Let me just take him out of here, and that'll be that. And everybody's like, no, you can't just do that. So they're going to be like, who the heck are you guys? You can't just come to our planet and just tell us to get out the way. You know what I mean? Maybe it's going to be like a situation like that. But the problem is going to be, they're going to be like, dude, that's Tony Stark. He looks like this dude. And how is that possible? And, you know, I don't know. That's the best I got.
Isaiah.
I really don't. You should have asked me this question like back in 2018, because I really don't do like fan theories that much. Not to say that it's bad. I'm not looking down upon it, but I just don't do it that much like how I used to. But if I had to give a guess just for the sake of the podcast, I think it is going to be multiverse connected, where there's going to be like this multiverse war that is going back and forth. I'm guessing Doom takes over their world. And I'm guessing that there is a flee to this earth to seek refuge, to regroup, and to find other heroes. Because we know
That's a
that
good theory.
Reed, he has cracked the code when it comes to time travel. Which makes sense, because when you look in their world, even though it has that old school vintage look, as a planet, they're much more technologically advanced than what we get in the world of Thunderbolts. Much more technologically advanced. Probably by like a good 20 to 30 years, I would say. Maybe even more than that. But that is where I'm getting at. And I know that we are about to wrap things up because we were talking about Franklin. One of the things that I also appreciate about this film is, even though I thought this group of characters were going to lose at the end, I was kind of flabbergasted of like, oh my God, they actually won. And I did like the whole idea of Sue using basically everything she's got, draining her life to literally overwhelm and overpower Galactus.
So good.
It is one of the greatest showcases of just raw power I've seen in recent like Marvel work.
Yeah.
And it came at a cost. Luckily, Silver Surfer was there to help out. I wish they could have built up to that just a little bit more, but luckily she was there to help out instead of Johnny making the ultimate sacrifice, which I thought was very commendable of him. And look, I get it. We've seen this is one criticism I would push back on against. We've seen multiple times where we see someone sacrifice their life to save others, and they are temporarily dead. And of course, like, yeah, no crap, they're not dead, or they're going to be brought back to life. And yes, you were getting this really good performance from Pedro Pascal, but what worked really effectively, and why I was like, you know what, this scene is actually pretty great. I liked how Sue Storm basically predetermined her own arc with a line that you could make a case wasn't earned. The line of, I will not sacrifice my baby for this world, but I will not sacrifice this world for my baby. Which, yeah, you can make a case wasn't very earned, given how people really wouldn't react. People would riot. People would get that way. But for her as a character, I bought that line delivery from Vanessa Kirby to where once we get back here, this is a mother who has sacrificed so much and has fought so hard for her baby, Franklin, to have a chance to live, that Franklin ends up bringing it back to her at the end. Like, you have given me this purpose, now I'm going to give it back to you. It's that coming full circle. You planted your own seeds to earn your right to live. I like that.
I mean, I guess I see your point. However, having just watched the 2007 version, right at the last minute before Doom kills the Silver Surfer, she blocks it and then she dies, and then he uses his power to bring her back to life. And in this, she uses her power and dies, and then Franklin uses his power to bring her back to life. So it was just too similar. It was done a lot better than the 2007 film, but it's like they kind of already did that. It's just slightly different. So it didn't really land as well for me as what you're saying. Like, I totally get it and I agree, but it's just the fact that they kind of already did the same thing in the other film, but they just did it better. So it's kind of like, However, last thing I'll say, I did appreciate how her force field powers weren't just the typical blue kind of bubble thing. It was more of that like rainbow, what is it, infrared kind of like spectrum.
Like a
you
bubble.
can kind of barely see it, but you can. I did appreciate that, how it wasn't just the typical blue force field bubble that you get in literally everything.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, I thought that was a cool way to do it and fit into the whole retro kind of vibe as well.
Nice. Yep. Yeah, good theories. I have no idea what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are playing the guessing game. RDJ's posting stuff. They're filming right now, and he's posting some comics, and people are guessing, playing the guessing game, which is exciting. But before, I will say, as we get ready to wrap up, I will say I wasn't on board with the casting. I still think that they probably could have went a different route, but I think they're strategic and they're smart enough that they're doing this for a specific reason. I don't think it's lazy anymore. I actually think
bring
that they
RDJ back?
Yes, I think it's very strategic with how they want to use his version of this Doctor Doom character. I also don't think he's Victor now. I'm not even sure if he's even a Tony Stark variant. I think he's somebody facading as Doctor Doom, maybe in the form of Tony Stark. Maybe. That's my guess. I've seen that kind of swirl around, and I'm like, that kind of makes a lot of sense. Franklin was touching Doom's face. His hand was up near Doom's face when Sue peeks around that corner. It makes me go, maybe he's reworking Doom's face and clearing up those scars, and it's looked like Tony. And the whole purpose is to have Tony's face so they can, get everybody on their side.
Yeah, I don't think his name is going to be Tony Stark. It's just going to be one of those things where he looks like him. I mean, if you look at the Loki show or like all this, there's so many variants that they kind of have similar looks, but they're not. It's like, it's like, hey, I'm not that guy that you think I am. But even in Guardians 3, with it being a Gamora that predates the first film, it's like she looks the same, but she's just
not
completely different. It's like, yeah, I'm not this guy. I look like him, but I'm not him. I'm my own person, and I have my own ideas and own plans. So yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. We're gonna have to wait until December now. Like we can't wait till next. We gotta wait till freaking December. Thank God we got Spider-Man to kind of buffer us over in July, which will also be interesting to see. Yeah, look, the things that are coming out about that movie, the theories, the things that are being said. This could be potentially the best Spider-Man film. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this could be the best Spider-Man film. This could be.
We'll have to see.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll have to see. Josiah, Isaiah, boys, thank you for coming on to the table. I'm sure I'm gonna have you guys on as always again in the future. So much more on Marvel to talk about. Also, so much movies left as we're about to hit August. And we're about to get running again in this fall, guys. There's a lot of stuff coming this fall. Avatar: Fire and Ash trailer just dropped. Go watch that trailer. Wicked for Good, that's coming our way. Zootopia 2 trailer just came out today, and that trailer is pretty good, and I got a good feeling about that one. And there's just so much more content that's going to be coming out. So keep it right here, Real Table Podcast. Boys, once again, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
And everybody else. Yeah, no problem. And everybody else, I'll see y'all real soon. Y'all be safe out there. Peace. Once again, thank y'all so much for joining me today on the Real Table Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and even comment. I want to hear your thoughts and I want to hear your opinions. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Real Table Pod and on Twitter at The Real Table. And don't forget to also check me out on therealtable.com for news, articles, and reviews. I will see y'all soon. Peace.